Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Kaylee and I use this channel to talk about different ways that I have made and am making my life more intentional. My hope is that if you follow along for the journey, you might find some ways to integrate more intentionality into your own life as well. One of my favorite intentional things to do with my time is to read, and I read a lot over the months of October, November, and December, and I want to do my final Q4 wrap up of all of the things I read in those 3 months, so that in a couple of days, maybe you'll see a video with my annual kind of review and wrap up for all of the books that I read the entire year. In the last 3 months of the year, I read 37 books, which is the most I think I've ever read in that amount of time ever. And I think December maybe was my highest reading month out of the entire year, which is not typical, but was definitely aided by the fact that I was traveling for part of that time and ill for another chunk of that month. Therefore, I had a lot of downtime on a plane, on a train, and in my bed to catch up on my reading goal for 2025. But we're just gonna jump right in because we have 37 books to get through, and I want to be as brief as I possibly can for as many of them as I can. But I had some really great books. I'm gonna tell you the name of the book, the name of the author, how many stars I gave it, and maybe just a few thoughts about each book. I ended Q3 with some short stories by contemporary romance authors that I enjoy, and I started Q4 with another one, and that was The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. And I gave that 3 stars. The Worst Wingman Ever was definitely my favorite short story by Abby Jimenez that I've read thus far, but I did enjoy The Fall Risk. I just enjoyed it a little less. The next book I finished was actually an audiobook. It's called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, and I gave this 4 stars. I definitely appreciated the first 35 to 40% more than the last half of the book, essentially. But that first 30 to 40% was fantastic. And it was very rewarding almost to read because I was already in alignment with a lot of the things that he was talking about. And it almost gave me additional permission to just continue in this vein of trying to align myself with intentionality and what feels right and what feels good moment to moment, rather than trying to keep up with this idea of productivity or efficiency or doing enough, because literally the limit for what we could do is endless. So will we ever actually be able to do enough? He poses, and I agree, that the answer is no. There is no enough, but we can determine what's most important and pertinent to us throughout our own lives. The third was another audiobook, but I would also love to get my hands on a physical copy of this one. It's Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and I gave this book 5 stars. If you have experienced any type of grief, I think that it's a great read. If you have anticipatory grief, you might lose someone soon, I recommend this book. And if you have not yet lost anyone, I recommend reading it now and saving it for later, for after too. Number 4 was The Chic Crone by Kristen Marion. I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I got the second book, which I'll talk about in just a moment, off of NetGalley, and realized that it was the second in a series. So I went in search of the first book and found it for free, actually, which was very cool. And I read it and I enjoyed it. It's fantasy. It's a woman in her 60s whose husband passes away, and then she finds out that he has been having an affair for a very, very long time. She sets out to kind of start over by herself and learns that she is a witch or a crone. Having an older female main character was very fun to read because most of the time they are between the ages of 14 and 17, and it gets old after a while. So it was a very fun change of pace to have an older female main character, and I really, really enjoyed it. Then I read the second one, Crone of Flames, by the same author, Kristen Marion, and I enjoyed this one a little less. There were a few loose ends at the end of book 1 that I anticipated would be wrapped up in book 2, and I was actually left with more questions instead of less, and I didn't love that. The writing was also a little bit more rushed, maybe, and I just didn't enjoy myself as much, but I still did really enjoy the book. Then I read My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. I had a great time reading that book, but there were a couple of things that I was like, ugh, I don't love this. I am interested to read the second one, which is about the main male character in this book, his kind of not even best friend, just another vampire that he's known a really long time. The writing was very funny and witty at times, and so like I said, I had a fun time. I would read the second one. It just wasn't one of my favorite books of the year, for sure. Then I listened to another one. This one was for work, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Colonnetti. I am not sure if I'm saying his last name correctly. However, I rated this book 2 stars, and I kind of feel bad saying that because the author, Paul, wrote this and then passed away before it got published. But with how this book was marketed, I expected something wholly different from this book. Maybe I would have rated it differently if it was marketed more accurately, but it was really hard to listen to, and I don't think it would have been better reading it physically. There are also a lot of very detailed descriptions of different medical practices as he was a doctor prior to passing. That was really hard to listen to. Like, I found myself having to skip because it was unnecessarily graphic, unless this book is for doctors, in my personal opinion. And therefore, I really wanted to rate the book 1 star, but the afterword by his wife was exactly what I wanted out of the book, and therefore she got an extra star. I wouldn't recommend it. Then I read Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson, and I rated this 4 stars. I'm honestly leaning on like 4.5 or 4.75 stars because I ate this book up. I read it so quickly. I found myself trying to like speed through work to be able to read the book. I loved it. It was my first book by Holly Jackson, and I definitely want to pick up more. I think she also wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Then I read another one kind of related for work more than myself, even though I really love Dr. Richard Schwartz and the work that he does with internal family systems, and that is No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz. I did rate this one 3 stars because I feel like this with a lot of psychology leaning and self-help leaning books, they get very repetitive. And I do understand that there is a certain amount of psychology that goes into that because you are trying to adapt the information multiple different ways so that many different people who learn differently or who take in information differently are able to glean what you want them to from your book. However, I'm tired of that now. And that's a me problem, not a them problem. People will continue writing books this way, as they should, to get the most out of the mass population who will read it. But for me, I'm recognizing I really enjoy the first like 30 to 40% of a lot of psychology educational books and self-help books because that's where the most meat is. And then the second 60% is often just repeating all of that differently or a little bit more in depth. So I had that problem with this book. I wish it would have wrapped up a little bit faster, but it was still very intriguing information for a subject that I'm quite interested in. Then I read The Wolf King by Lauren Palferman, and I gave this 3 stars, even though it was a great ride. The writing wasn't the best, which is why it's 3 stars instead of 4, but I read this very quickly. I was really excited to pick up the second book, which I read a little bit later, and I'm really excited for the third one to come out later in 2026. Then I read September by Rosamund Pilcher. I adore Rosamund Pilcher. She wrote one of my favorite winter books called Winter Solstice, and I have been trying to get some of her other books that are set during different times of year so that I kind of have a book for every season of hers. September was set primarily actually all throughout the year, but then ended in September. And I enjoyed it. I rated it 3.5 stars. There are definitely some themes that did not age well. I just did notice I enjoyed this one slightly less than Winter Solstice because of some of the themes that didn't age well. Then I read another short story by Christina Lauren called Falling, and it's a part of a series of short stories by contemporary romance authors, and all of them were set like on Halloween or around Halloween. And I read this on Halloween night just as kind of a little romance. I anticipated spooky, not spooky thing to read as I was going to bed on Halloween, but I rated it 1 star. It was bad. It was not good. I think if it had been a full book, I might have enjoyed it more, because a little different from the like Valentine Springtime short story series that I read towards the end of Q3 in 2025. Those seem to be a little bit more about the romance of it. This one seemed like, how much smut can I get into 87 pages, essentially? And it was an alarming amount. And I wasn't expecting that, and that's not really what I wanted from just that short of a story. But I digress. It was fine. I just rated it 1 star, and I didn't read any of the other ones in that series. Coming up are a couple of other short stories by Alice Hoffman. I adore Alice Hoffman, and I have read The Bookstore Sisters years ago. And then I found out there were even more short stories about these bookstore sisters. So the first one was The Bookstore Wedding, and I rated that one 3 stars. I did really enjoy it. It just wasn't my favorite writing from Alice Hoffman. Then I read The Night Prince, again by Lauren Palferman. This is the second book in the Wolf King series. I rated it 3 stars as well. Again, primarily because of the writing style and technique. I didn't rate it 4 stars, but depending on which direction she takes in book number 3, that one might get me to 4 stars. It might get me to 4 stars. So I am thoroughly enjoying those books, even though they're just so silly. But they know that they are, and that makes it better for me. Then I read The Bookstore Keepers by Alice Hoffman. Again, I rated this one 3 stars. Not my favorite, but still a very enjoyable read, and I really like this world. It's a little magical realism-esque, and I like that a lot. Speaking of magical realism, then I read Piranesi by Susanna Clark. I really enjoyed this book. It was so weird. I think when I wrote my review, I said, what a lovely, odd little book. And that's exactly what it is. It's so odd. I really enjoyed it. And I would recommend going in blind. I went in blind. I had no idea what I was in for. And I think that that made me enjoy it more. And if I didn't say, I rated that one 4 stars. Then to finish up the Alice Hoffman bookstore series, I read The Bookstore Family, and I rated that one 4 stars. It was a lovely conclusion, and it was the writing that I really love from Alice Hoffman. Then I read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, and I rated this 5 stars. Claire is an Irish author, and I really adored her writing, even though the subject matter was quite heavy for a lot of this book, and I really want to find more by her and see what else she has to offer, because I really enjoyed this book. And I really want to watch the movie adaptation with Cillian Murphy, 1, because I love Cillian, and 2, because I think it would be quite interesting to see this depicted on film. Book number 19 was The Law of Moses by Amy Harmon. You're about to see a lot of books come through from Amy Harmon. I had a Kindle Unlimited free trial, and I downloaded as many of her books as I could because they had been on my want to read list for a very long time, and I read as much as I could during the time of my free trial. The Law of Moses I rated 4 stars. Her books are other books that I think that you should go in primarily blind to. She has a lot now of like historical fiction, and I haven't read any of those, and I'm not a huge historical fiction buff. There are very specific authors that I enjoy the way that they do historical fiction. I might try one of hers because I think I have one that I got for free digitally a while ago. So I might try that one. But her old catalog is something near and dear to my heart now. And it started with The Law of Moses. It is a tragic book. I cried. Every one of her books that I read, I cried. I sobbed in 2 of them. The Law of Moses was one of them. I don't know if that sells it, but if you're needing something emotional, Definitely give it a read and give her back catalog a read. Then I read the first book of Girl Squad Volta by Maya Lin Wong, also goes by M.L. Wong. She wrote Blood Over Bright Haven, which I read earlier this year and absolutely adored. This one was a little bit more middle grade focused, and I rated it 3 stars because it was quite good. It wasn't the M.L. Wong I'm used to reading for sure, but these are much older, and it still was quite interesting. I don't know if I'll read the rest of the series just because they're quite hard to get a hold of, but I'm intrigued, so we'll see what happens. Book 21 was The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter. I rated this 3 stars. It was very fun to read. It did start feeling a little long around the 65% mark, but it made me think a little bit of like Knives Out and Glass Onion, those movies, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that set at Christmas time. It was a fun little read to read towards the end of October because it was still a little mysterious, and then beginning of November, so kind of starting to get in the holiday mood. Then I read another Amy Harmon book called The Song of David, which I also rated 4 stars. This has some crossover with the Law of Moses characters, so I would suggest reading the Law of Moses first and then the Song of David. However, you don't have to. There is enough background kind of set out for you in the Song of David that you don't have to read the Law of Moses first, but I would recommend it because I think I enjoyed it more because I had a history of this person that's the main focus in the Song of David. Number 23, another Amy Harmon book, Making Faces, and I rated this 5 stars. This was another of the books that I sobbed. I cried happy tears, I cried frustrated tears, and I cried absolutely distraught devastation tears. But I highly recommend the book. It's hard to then say that I highly recommend the book because it was devastating. I think also with just a certain community that I'm very involved in made it even more tender for me, but I think it will be devastating no matter what when you read a certain section of this book. It's kind of marketed or described as a bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and kind of, I can definitely see that theme throughout, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. And it's one that I will now be searching for to have on my shelves because I need it. I need to hold it in my hand. I read it digitally, but I need a copy of it. And then a real hard left turn into Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. I rated this 4 stars. I have never read anything by Catherine Walsh. This was my first book of hers, and I loved it. It's set between kind of Ireland and Chicago. I love Chicago. I love Ireland. So it was very fun to kind of be in those 2 places. I will also say, without spoiling anything, that there's no third act massive conflict. There's no real miscommunication trope. It was so pleasurable to read. It's exactly what I want from a holiday romance. Exactly what I want from a holiday romance. So you'll see her more. Then I read Always Remember by Charlie Mackesy. This book, the illustrations in this are absolutely gorgeous. Like truly, truly gorgeous. Let me show you. If you haven't seen any of this artwork before, I don't know how you haven't because there are so many things posted throughout the internet of his art. It's gorgeous. The first half of this book, I kept kind of being like, oh, I haven't been destroyed by this yet. And then I hit a page where I was absolutely destroyed. I had to go back and read the pages a couple of times to like really sit with what it brought up in me because it brought some stuff up in me. And then I continued to just have tears streaming down my face as I continued to finish this book because wow, it's so gorgeous. This is the second of his books. I also own the first one. I can't recommend them more. I love them so much. I rated it 5 stars if I didn't say that already, and if that wasn't apparent already. Then for my final Amy Harmon book of the year, I read The Bird and the Sword by Amy Harmon. I rated it 4 stars. This was a little bit more of her dipping her toe into fantasy-esque writing, and I liked it. I don't know if I liked it enough to read the second one. I think I kind of liked it better as a standalone. And if I'm reading the synopsis for the second one correctly, it goes off with another person who I'm not super intrigued by. So I probably won't read that, but I did enjoy The Bird and the Sword. The premise was quite interesting. This little girl uses her words to create magic, and then she can take away the magic by saying the word backwards. And then she experiences a traumatic event and her words are completely gone. And she kind of starts to realize that she can still use her magic. Mentally, she starts to be able to communicate with people. She also has like a little, I envision him almost like a house pixie from some other books that I have read that she loves and that loves her and takes care of her. And that was really precious to read. It was a really good book. I enjoyed it quite a lot. Then I read The Secret of the Kelpie, which yes, is a very short book, but if it exists in Goodreads or whatever reading app I am using to track my books, it's gonna get tracked. So this one was gorgeous. I mostly enjoyed the illustrations, which were by Philip Longson, and the author of this is Larry Don, but the illustrations of this one are absolutely stunning. And it was like a little bit of a spooky read. I know about Kelpies, but this one definitely stayed on like the dark side of the Kelpie. And because it includes small children, it was kind of like, yikes. But it was gorgeous to look at, gorgeous to read. I rated this one 4 stars. Yeah, I rated this one 4 stars. Then I read Your Next Life Is Now by Namrata Patel. I rated this one 3 stars. I have read other books by this author that I have enjoyed a lot, so I was a little disappointed by this one. But I think maybe some of the themes weren't necessarily for me, and for me, the writing wasn't on par with one of her other books that I've read, so it was good, but it wasn't great. This next one, I'm literally ashamed to say out loud, but we're gonna get through it together. I read Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nacosta. And in my little notes here, I wrote down all of the stars that I gave every book, and next to this one, I wrote, please don't ask, because I don't want to rate it. I don't want to think that critically about it, if I'm being honest, because a couple of things. I think I would rate it higher than I want to, because there were parts of this book unassociated with the milking part that were cute. And I kind of want to read more about this city that they're in. But to do that, I have to read about some really dirty things that happen with magical creature things. And I don't want to do that, because she has a whole series and they're all set in this little town. So you could read more about it, but I don't want to read about a Mothman with a 4-foot tongue. And I don't want to read about a Spider-Man, like literally kind of spider-esque man, or a lizard man. I don't want to do that. The Minotaur was hard enough. No pun intended. And it was cute. It was cute. But it was bad. It was bad. So I'm not going to rate that one. But I did read it. And I feel dirty. I'm not going to be curious about stuff anymore. That's what I'm learning. I was curious about that one for a while, specifically based off of a reel that I saw. I forget the creator's name, but she's like sitting there knitting, talking about this book. And I was laughing hysterically. And I was like, what is this book? And I kept coming back to it, And during my stinking free trial with Kindle Unlimited, it was on Kindle Unlimited, and I tried it, and I could never unsee what I saw through the words that I read on the page. And now I need to shut up. I'm talking about this book too long. No. Number 30, another really hard left turn, guys. Number 30 is called The Mitford Snowmen by Jen Caron. and I rated this 3 stars. I also read for book 31, Esther's Gift by the same author, and it's in like a little box set, and I rated that one 3 stars too. What I learned in reading this, I think there's like a Mitford collection of books by this author, and these books talked about some of the characters that if you read those books, you would know. They're really short, and I found them on my grandmother's bookshelf, but I didn't see any books from this author on her shelves, so I'm wondering if someone gave it to her initially. They were cute. I rated them 3 stars. Probably would have enjoyed them more had I known this cast of characters that we were revisiting at Christmas time. Then I listened to Santa Claus in Oz by L. Frank Baum. I rated this 3 stars. There were moments of it that definitely felt more 4-star. It was very fun to listen to. It was very immersive to listen to. I really enjoyed the narrator, and I was just trying to find some Christmassy books to listen to when I was driving around. And now we revisit Catherine Walsh for 3 more reads. The first one is A Mistletoe Kiss by Catherine Walsh. I rated this 3 stars. It's a short story that's available on her website that is a little bit more of the perspective from holiday romance. It was very cute. I read Merrily Ever After, which I rated 3.5 stars. This is a collection of short stories with various different side characters from her books Holiday Romance and Snowed In, which we'll get to in a minute. And I enjoyed this a lot. I rated it 3 stars because 2 of the stories I didn't connect with as much, or I didn't feel like they were fleshed out as much as some of the other ones. I think his name is Oliver. I would love a book just about Oliver. I would like to revisit just that short story again because it was so freaking cute. It was also very sweet to read about their dad, but that one wasn't my favorite just because it had a very different feel than the others, but it was still really cute. Then I read her other full-length novel called Snowed In, and I rated this 4 stars. I enjoyed it just as much as Holiday Romance. It is with one of the brothers of the main male character from Holiday Romance, and I was already intrigued by him in that book, so I'm really happy that we got a second book with him as the focus, and I liked it a lot. Then I read The Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson. I gave this 4 stars. I read this after watching the movie The Best Christmas Pageant Ever with, what's his name? Pete Holmes. He's a comedian. He's the dad in it. Lauren Graham does the narration, and she's in it for a short bit at the end. And I forget the actress of the mom. But it was a very cute movie. I really wanted to see it when it came out and never was able to. And then it was on Netflix this year, so we watched it and I adored it. So then I wanted to read the book and I adored that as well. It was very cute. Though I am glad they left out some themes that didn't age too well from the book in the movie. Finally, I started the quarter with a short story by Abby Jimenez, and I ended the quarter with a short story by Abby Jimenez. This one is The Situationship. I rated it 3 stars. I probably could have rated it 4, but it was way too short. It was way too short. I was getting so invested in Maddie, and I forget his name, but they are side characters in the Just for the Summer Part of Your World series, and I want a full-length novel. I want a full-length novel because I enjoyed the short story so much, and I think I rated it 3 stars mostly because I was bitter at the end that it just ended. How dare she? And that wraps up all of my reads for the last 3 months of the year. I'm thinking going into 2026, I'm probably going to do a monthly reading roundup and kind of integrate it with some other things that I've got cooking in my brain, just so that I'm also not trying to talk about 37 books all at one time and maybe can give a little bit more detail, because honestly, by the time I get to month 3, it's really hard to articulate certain themes or things that I liked in the books from that first month of the quarter. So I think I'm going to start doing a monthly reading roundup going forward, but I definitely wanted to finish off 2025. Stay tuned. In a couple of days, I am going to go through my StoryGraph statistics for 2025 and my goals around books in general for 2026. So be on the lookout for that soon, and I will see you then. Until next time.